And ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma.
With 20 seconds left to play. Goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63-62. 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with 1 timeout. Fred Brown looking. Oh, way to Worthy. Worthy 5. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship.
Rebounded by Weber. Michigan out of timeout. Weber front court. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. They're out of timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul. Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short. Rebounded. There. It's over. Carolina has won the national championship. How about them Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
That's it! Make room for 2017. The Tar Heels are the national dadgum champions.
This is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Joshua Marlowe. Hey guys, and welcome to this edition of the Roy's Boys podcast, powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony were here with you, and we are getting you ready for the Battle for Atlantis, where Carolina is competing this Thanksgiving weekend, as Feast Week has started in college basketball. Numerous holiday events started late or Saturday into Sunday. Maui Invitational got going on Monday night, and the Battle for Atlantis getting going tomorrow down in the Bahamas. Anthony, this is going to be the first major test for Carolina. What are your thoughts as Carolina gets prepared to go do battle in the Battle for Atlantis?
By the way, Feast Week, phenomenal every single year. Now, one of my favorite times of the college basketball season, with them no longer doing the 24-hour hoops marathon anymore. But yeah, this is one of those interesting type of years for these holiday tournaments for the Tar Heels, because there is a little uncertainty about this team, and that's kind of weird to say about a team that's currently 6th in the AP polls. But I mean, they go into this game not really having faced a stiff test just yet, outside of the opening game against Notre Dame. But again, how much can you really take away from that, since it was the opener? But yeah, no, this is one of those games that I think, we're against Alabama to begin, and then as we go forward, it's a group of games that, we just really don't know what to expect going in. And I think that is a little bit uneasy, but at the same time, it's also a little bit exciting.
Well, before we get into our full breakdown of the Alabama game and then the Battle for Atlantis as a whole, we are going to start this podcast with the opening tip, which starts right now. And this is going to be a very fun opening tip, because this is the first time that I get to freak out in 2019.
I guess that's fun.
I've been on record for a long time, as long as I've had a Twitter account, being very patient, very trusting of Roy Williams and this coach staff. And look, I'm still very trusting of what he's going to do with this team. I just came to the realization watching that Elon game that I am worried that this team may not be what we thought it was going to be in the preseason, which was a team that could win the ACC and compete to win a national championship. We just haven't seen that from this team as of right now. And look, a lot of that's understandable. They're without 4 rotational players, and there's a lot of depth or lack of depth in both the front and the back court, and we understand just how important depth is to Carolina basketball. But it's not – it's the other things where you're seeing mistakes from older guys and guys that you expected to be a little more productive for Carolina early in the year. That has me a little bit uneasy, because it's hard to rely on freshmen to carry you through the course of a 40-game college basketball season. It's why you don't see the Dukes and Kentuckys go to Final Fours and win national titles, because it's hard for those 18 and 19-year-old guys to bring it every night. And that's what Carolina's asking of Cole Anthony, and they need Armando Bacot to start giving them a consistent 15 points, 8 rebounds a night. And I think that's just asking too much out of them when we as a program, we're not built to run it, to function like that, and that's okay. I've always been a fan of getting old and staying old in college basketball. It's why Carolina went to consecutive national title games. Young teams are not going to do that. But I came to the realization that this team is going to struggle. And not that I'm, upset about that, because I think we knew that was a possibility coming in. I just think we kind of got caught up in the whole Notre Dame thing, because you got to see a freshman go off for 34 points. But there's been a lot of issues that got, masked by his effort in that game that came to light in the home games against Gardner-Webb and Elon, where Carolina just wasn't ready to go. And when you're not ready to go, they're not good enough to just blow these teams out. And maybe I'm overreacting. I'll let you kind of speak on this realization that I had, because it's not me. I'm very patient. I understand that they're going to lose some games in November and December that is going to pay off in January, February, and, of course, going into March when you get into the NCAA tournament. But this Carolina basketball team feels a little bit different than what we thought we were going to get when the season began.
No, I mean, we've talked about it in a couple of the other podcasts when we were recapping games and maybe even previewing games. I think the expectations for this team were really, really high, especially early in the offseason. And as we started to sort of go along, we started to see some more concerning things about this team, especially when it came to experience. And that's one of the things that has always made Carolina just so much different than everybody else, especially in this modern era of college basketball where talent is what matters, not experience. For Carolina, it's much different. That's not how they think. And that's what's great about Carolina for Tar Heel fans. We love the fact that Roy Williams values those guys that stick around and wants to find those guys on the recruiting trail that are going to stay and build themselves, at the college level instead of going to the NBA and having to do that. But unfortunately, this year we just don't really have the benefit of that. It doesn't help that we got a lot of injuries to, key guys like Brandon Robinson, as well as Sterling Manley, and then a couple of freshmen who would have impacts as well, and Anthony Harris and Jeremiah Francis. I think that's one of the reasons that you should be still a little cautiously optimistic about this team, is that when they do return Brandon Robinson, they return a guy that last year was tasked with expanding his role from the first 2 years that he was on campus, and he did that successfully. He'll be tasked again with doing that this year, and, if he's able to sort of do what he did a year ago and build off of that and take over a bigger role, which will probably be to come off the bench and shoot the ball well. Or at this point, we talked about it at some points in the preseason that if Christian Keeling struggled, Brandon Robinson might be needed in the starting lineup. And I think he has the ability to come in and fill those roles. I don't think he is a guy that's going to come in and automatically drop 15, 16 a night like some people seem to think. But I still feel like there's a reason to be confident. Anthony Harris is going to come back at some point as well. That'll give you a little more depth at point guard, not having to, play Leaky as extensively. He'll be able to get a little more rest, but mainly get a little more coaching on the bench, which is something that, he definitely needs, being a guy, as we've said, basically a redshirt freshman. He's listed as a sophomore, but he's basically a redshirt freshman going through his freshman season again because he didn't play during the most crucial times a year ago. I think there's legitimate reasons to be concerned on the offensive end, what this team has shown. But at the same time, it's still early in the season, and you just played a game that I honestly think might have been one of your most important games of the season when you look back on it in the game against Elon, because this is a team that was down at halftime. But the main thing that I think this game is going to prove going forward is that it showed the rest of these guys that, look, Cole Anthony, he's a fantastic player. Most nights he's going to be like the guy that we saw in the first 3 games of the season. But there are going to be times where he is going to come out and he is going to struggle. And there are going to be times that we need other guys to step up on the offensive end of the floor. The first 3 games of the season, he was playing so well that guys really didn't feel like they had to be that aggressive with the basketball. And the scoring numbers were not there. The shooting numbers were not there, and that was concerning. The other night against Elon, they saw, look, we're going to have to find somebody else that can step up. Armando Bacot, to me, looks like that guy right now that is going to be that number 2 scoring option, and I'm comfortable with that. Also looks like Garrison Brooks realizes he has to step up a little bit more, which is something that we challenged him to do in the offseason, is to grow offensively, because defensively we don't have a ton of concerns with them. So, look, I understand why there's reasons to be concerned, and I think that at this point, the people that are voicing their concerns on social media, they have a valid point, and they have a reason why they should be able to voice those concerns on social media. It doesn't mean that you're a bad fan. It means that you are looking at it from an analytical standpoint and seeing that this team is struggling so far this year. It's also okay if you feel like you want to believe in this team, that this team will be good at the end of the year. But you shouldn't crucify other people for their opinion. The facts are the facts. This team is not shooting the ball very well so far early in the season. This team is playing really good defense, though, early in the season, and rebounding the way that we think they should be early in the season. So there's some good, there's some bad, but it's like I told you when we were talking, I think it was after the Wilmington game or maybe when we were previewing the Gardner-Webb game. These last 3 games haven't really told us a ton about the Tar Heels going forward. This battle for Atlantis is going to tell us a ton about this team, because you're going to play 3 games in 3 days. This will show you somewhat of what it's like to play in the NCAA tournament, which is when you win, you move on to play a tougher opponent. It doesn't get easier. So you've got to be ready for whoever is coming up next. And you can't look forward. You've got to be ready for whoever you're playing that day. And so I think we're going to find out a lot about this Tar Heel team out in the Bahamas. And when they come back after this trip, I think it's going to be a much different basketball team.
And with that, we'll go ahead and start looking at this 2019 Battle for Atlantis. It is a loaded field, as it always is. You can make the argument some years that this is the premier holiday tournament in college basketball. The Maui Invitational's kind of always had that kind of claim. But this year, it's just a star-studded field. You got Carolina ranked 5th. Gonzaga, who's ranked 6th, Oregon, who's ranked 11th, Seton Hall, who's ranked 13th. All teams figure to be playing deep into March. You've got Michigan and Iowa State in that field. That could be NCAA tournament teams as well. Factor in Alabama and Southern Miss. And it's going to be a difficult bracket for Carolina to navigate. And they start with Alabama Wednesday, 2:30 on ESPN. And I think, look, the thing with Alabama, I haven't seen them yet. This will be the first time I've laid eyes on them. Program that's in rebuild. You've got a first-year head coach in Nate Oates, who came over after doing some pretty cool things over at Buffalo, taking that program to the tournament, upsetting Arizona, I believe 2 years ago in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But Alabama is just a program in transition. They come in with a 2-2 record. Their 2 losses are to Penn and Rhode Island. So it's not like they've lost to world beaters.
This is not Danny Hurley's Rhode Island either.
Right, yeah.
Not a good basketball team.
Now, they've got a guy that can fill it up. I'm going to assume his name is Kira Lewis Jr. He leads them in scoring, averages 21.5 points per game, and he's very efficient. 52% from the field, 40% from 3-point range. So it feels like this is going to be, the guy that if there's a guy on Alabama to have a career day, this is the guy. But I think when you look at this game for Carolina, you look at what's been the